Hey there, and welcome to the Dynamics Hot Dish Podcast, serving up stories and knowledge on Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform. This is What's Hot in Dynamics. You're now joining Merlin Schweiger, Liz McGlennon, and Ashley Steiner.
Well, welcome everyone. Today we have our third episode as part of our D&I series, and we have Tayo and Nabil here today. They're both entrepreneurs, and Tayo is the co-founder of Eterna Media and a youth development specialist. So welcome both of you. We're really excited to have you here, and thank you for your time. Tayo, would you want to start just by sharing more about yourself and your background and introduce yourself to our listeners?
No problem. I'm Tayo Daniel. I am the co-founder of Tayo Media, which is a media tech company that specializes in marketing. We've been running for about 4 years, and the reason why I got into this is because I feel that the media and tech space are two different, sectors that lack representation of people of color. But on the upside, they're the two different spaces that you can accumulate wealth the fastest. I'm really challenging economic disparities, and I wanted to take a leadership role in that and showcase that I'm actually taking an ownership position in those two spaces and hopefully pay it forward.
That's wonderful. Nabil, would you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. My name is Nabil Ghebre, and I own DGB Management, which is a hospitality management and entertainment company. We own a group of restaurants throughout the Twin Cities, Stepchild, Gold Room, Hyde, a few others. We focus on really employees of people of color kind of background and giving them an opportunity to get into hospitality, learn about the business, and then kind of grow up the ranks. So it's really kind of a unique business model, and it's worked really well for us throughout our restaurants.
In other words, he's the man.
No. I love it. Yeah, we're excited to have you both share your experiences today. So our first question for both of you is, we want to hear your perspective on why do underrepresented communities or historically excluded communities lack access to tech in both their personal and professional lives, and why is it a struggle for these communities to get into tech as a career, or STEM in general too, if we want to talk a little bit broader?
That's a very complex question, right? A lot of this starts from generations and generations ago about family structure, about role models, about culture, understanding who you are. There was a famous quote that says, if you know who you are, nobody can tell you who you are, right? So personally, this is just my opinion, I think the really deep-rooted problem that we see here, the lack of family representation, your first learning institution, which is your family, and then it goes into the broader aspect of the culture that you're in and the people that are around. So if nobody in your family and nobody in your culture in the tech space, how are you going to find out about it, right? How are you going to learn about a lot of those things? And then systemically, when I say we, I'm talking about the Black community, we've been marginalized and not have the privilege to have access to a lot of innovation and things that would help accelerate generational wealth, tech being one of them, and media and all and whatnot. So you can look throughout history and realize, we've been set back so many years as far as our accessibility and access to resources that could help elevate our culture economically.
Yeah, I'll add on to that and say, definitely. I think a lot of it, is a lack of mentors, mentees in this space, right? And knowing someone personally that has excelled in the space and that works in the space. But also, I think it is generational, right? Coming from my background, tech was kind of a luxury, right? Having a computer at home and having internet and those things were a luxury. And I was lucky enough to be able to experience that because of my parents' hard work. And I remember the AOL getting online sound, so I can relate to that. But, a lot of my friends did not have that in their home. So they didn't see the usability and get familiar with it at an early age. So I think that's what it is. I just think our communities just tend to be pretty far behind because the opportunities just weren't available. And it was more of a want versus a need. And I think that needs to be reversed. This really needs to become a need in our community. It needs to be something that should be in every home and should be taught just like your basic curriculum. And I think that's what's going to help the community catch up.
Yeah, agreed. When you look at different culture growing up, for example, my parents are African, right? In the African culture, there's a lot of people in the medical field, doctors, lawyers, and stuff like that. So you start to see an increase of that as it continues because they're seeing the role model, they're seeing the results of that, right? They're seeing the fruits from that type of labor. When we have lack of representation of people of color in these fields, the young generation, they don't get to see the fruits from that labor. They don't get to see that. They do see NBA players, they do see athletics, they do see entertainment. So that's why you see a lot of them striving to be that because they see the results from those career fields, which is, in my personal opinion, a really harsh way to go if you're trying to be overall, successful.
There's also just not a lot of open roles. Like I think it's such a small percentage of people can become a professional athlete. Like there's just so much more demand, and like it's such a higher growth industry to be in STEM or be in tech or be in media. It can positively impact like more people.
Right.
Yeah,
100%.
I agree. I think so. What I'm hearing and what I feel is that it's just a lack of visibility, right? I mean, you have these other roles that are very visible, very minimal opportunities within them. Athletes, entertainers, et cetera. But when you have these other roles that are in the STEM field that are, also very lucrative. Hey, well, you can obviously do a lot in your career as far as advancing and getting different opportunities within different organizations, but just not a lot of visibility around it. So especially people in our community just don't see that. You don't see too many people in that field and really get a chance to interact with them. So I think, building that mentor-mentee type of relationship is just going to help. And I think that there's a level of excitement once you kind of get involved in that field because, you have an opportunity it's challenging. And I think you can challenge yourself every day, depending on how far you want to take it, So I think once hopefully it gets a little bit more introduced, I think it could kind of snowball, just like, for example, my parents are African too. We have a background and my parents would always tell me like, be an engineer or tell my sisters to be a nurse. Cause there's, just the math behind it tells you that you can be employed and you can, support yourself and your family. So I think the increased visibility will just help us.
Yeah. And speaking of, you were talking about mentees and mentors and whatnot. I mean, the whole other side of this is the educational system. And what did that look like for people in underserved areas?
Yeah. I was going to say, I feel like that kind of comes back to the resourcing point that Nabil brought up earlier, right? Like if you don't have a computer in your house and you've only got like 10 really crappy computers in a lab in your school building, and maybe you don't have, access to the internet or you don't have access to all this technology, like how are you even going to know if you're interested in it if you never have the opportunity to give it a try?
Exactly.
I agree. I think you don't know what you don't know, and there's a lot of that in our community. You just don't know what you don't know, and since you don't know about it, you tend to shy away from it. And I think there's also a perception that it's extremely difficult. Like you need to be a genius to be in this type of world.
Right.
And I think the reality of it is like to be successful in anything, you need to put in hard work. But, there is a process to excel in the STEM world, you know what I mean? And I think that also needs to be shared. Like, hey, I think there's always been that myth that, oh man, you're a computer geek. You're on your, it's like, it's really not even that, it's not really even that hard. If you really think about it, I'm sure there's individuals. I mean, if you're running 5 miles a day and you're reading all these plays on the football field, I know you can figure out a few of these things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Tayo? Don't you think that it was always kind of felt like, man, there's no way you're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
I used to be scared about it. And I was like,
yeah, even myself included. I mean, kind of like what you're saying. It's like, you don't have to be a genius, I mean, look at me, for example. I'm far from a genius, and I'm in the media tech field,
Yep.
And the only thing I keep asking myself is like, I wish I would have known a lot of these things a lot earlier. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what it comes down to, is that we're not given the access to these resources. There's never a lack of resources in this world. It's just a lack of information and knowledge that's given to people, and that's just what it comes down to. we need more information, more knowledge, and more access to resources at an earlier development stage in life, a lot earlier development stage in life. I mentor a lot of youth, and I speak at public schools and whatnot, and I can't, just the creativity that these students have is just incredible. They're bright, they're smart, and a lot of them are smarter than I am. They're coming up with different ideas, and they're very abstract in the way of thinking. And they're reaching over here and reaching over here, and then at some point that starts to get suppressed. Their belief system starts to dwindle, and I think majority of it is just really believing in yourself.
Yeah, I heard two really big takeaways, like confidence, like believing in yourself, sticking with it, and hard work. And I totally agree. Like, I don't think STEM or tech requires you to be a genius or a rocket scientist. Like, you don't have to be exceptionally smart. You just need to put in the hard work and try. And it's totally attainable for everyone out there.
I think there's a misconception that to work in STEM tech, maybe like specifically, like you have to be a coder. Like everyone knows code or they're in the back end of computers. I'm a very functional person and I work in tech, right? There's a lot of different types of personalities and people that you need to make tech successful. And you don't have to be like a technical in the weeds person. So to that point, but how do you get that education out there to people to let them know that you don't have to go to 8 years of classes of learning how to program to be successful?
Well, yeah, you don't have to program at all, and you don't have to sit on a computer all day. You can work with people. You don't need to be a super technical person.
You don't. You can just hire them, like myself.
Right. Be a business owner, start a business, have a team. Yeah.
Being a business owner, I think one of the things that I've realized is that throughout my different entities in my restaurants, when we have technical issues, they tend to follow a pattern. After a while, you realize like, oh, okay, this is the issue. I've seen someone come in and fix it, and this is how they fix it. And I repeated it, and I was able to handle it myself. So it's more like, I think it's the experience factor of it. And I think that's in any role, right? It may be challenging the first time, but you'll see a pattern. I think that's just anything, with anything in this world, right? There usually is a pattern to whatever that caused the problem and how to solve it. So yeah. I think if we can look at trying to simplify it and just use terms and kind of concepts that we, use daily, it'll take, like I said, the fear factor out of it. I used to be like, oh man, this is going to cost me a ridiculous amount of money. He has to totally reboot my POS system, and there's this wrong and this wrong. And once I kind of follow it, I'm like, whoever created the system, they were smart enough to understand they didn't want you to spend too much time trying to fix stuff. Like you can get this done by just following these steps.
Yeah, if it's a good system, it should be easy to set up and use. Yeah, and they aren't all the same, but yeah, I mean, that's so many good points there too. Like, I think the first time, if you've had no exposure to something, you've never done it before, like no matter what it is, it's kind of scary and intimidating, no matter who you are or what the thing is. So it's just kind of getting over that first hurdle of figuring it out and trying it. Yeah.
And I also think like some of the terms, like, I have some friends that work in that, when you talk about system network analysts and et cetera, like, I think some of those terms are just a little like, what does that mean?
There is so much jargon and acronyms it's hard. It's almost like learning a new language in a way.
Yeah, it is, right? Yeah. Like a nurse is a nurse, but there's tons of complicated stuff that person does within their role. You know what I mean?
Right. Where to the average person on the street, they're not going to know this, like the nuance of the medical industry language. So tech is just the same way.
Yeah. So I always thought like maybe that also is something maybe down the line where, you could look at some refreshing of the names so that they're a little bit more welcoming. Maybe I'm just scared.
Not so intimidating. I agree. It is intimidating.
Yeah.
Okay. So our next question is then, how can tech careers help these communities? And I guess I want to focus too on how can we improve? I feel like we're talking a lot about awareness and education. So like, what can we do to help bring more information, more awareness to the potential options that are out there?
Fund companies and nonprofits like TechFluent.
I love that you brought up TechFluent.
Nice plug.
Yeah.
That was a setup. Yeah, for sure.
Alley-oop.
Yeah. Alley-oop, man.
But no, seriously though, I think it's a two-pronged approach, right? We need more mentors. We need more visibility, awareness, access to resources, funding different initiatives that are making tech accessible and awareness to BIPOC communities. But at the same time, really addressing, and this is more of a long-term approach, the systemic oppressions that are happening. And this is not for a blame game or anything like that. I don't want to get into the weeds about that, but it's just really more of a problem-solving situation, right? It's been proven and systemically, the systems that are designed, whether the people that are working in these different institutions are aware of it or not, just how it works, how these systems work, it's been shown to marginalize and whatnot. So really addressing those issues at the same time, bringing awareness, and really, personally, I really believe it's an economic problem. Like, how can we grow a Black middle class? How can we get more people out of poverty? I don't think we're going to eradicate poverty, but the question is, how can we get more people out of poverty? I think it stems from that. I mean, do the families have the extra financial income to buy computers? Do they have the extra financial income to send their kids to the different programs and whatnot, and to help them, finance whatever their endeavors are, get them the tools that they need to explore even more? I mean, right now we're starting to go into the Web3 space. I mean, can they afford these Oculus glasses? Can they afford these VR stuff and all this 3D pens and different things that that I hear a lot of students wishing they had?
Yeah, I agree. I think exposure, right? Exposure is the key. Exposure at an early age in kind of a welcoming environment, which is usually your home, right? So if you think, right, as a nation, we went through a pretty big crisis with COVID, and I think we saw when there are things like that, government can be pretty generous. Lots of people received support that they needed. And if you think about that, if we could have done that years ago and made sure that every home that needed it had a computer, had internet, had some of those things where they can learn, I think you would get that level of exposure that we need, and we would get a much more diverse group of people. And the key to diversity, I think, is not necessarily just because of the different backgrounds, but it's just the different thought processes that people are bringing in, and you just tend to find better solutions and more airtight kind of thoughts that I think will just help the greater good, right? So I'm a big supporter of getting that, getting technology into every home. And I know, I know we can afford it. I'm sure Bill Gates and those guys would sign up for something
Jeff
like
Bezos.
that. Yeah, Jeff Bezos,
Will
they can
he
come
share?
together. Yeah, they would. That wouldn't hurt them at all. So I mean, I think it's about getting it in the home at an early age. I think
100% agree with that. And to add on to that, I really think that not only to back companies like nonprofits like TechFluent and whatnot, but also the corporations that are in this space having a responsibility to be more inclusive and to champion those individuals of colors that are in their workspace. And how are we making sure that they are adapting to that company culture, and how are we uplifting them, promoting them, and giving them the rewards? Because it's really tough to work in an environment where you feel isolated or you don't see your peers as much, and they continue to thrive and to elevate up that socioeconomic ladder. So when you do see individuals like that, we need to elevate them, support them, promote them, and showcase them, so the younger generation can see them.
They're a role model then.
Yeah, we need to put the next Black promoted president of some tech company. We need to put them on a billboard and talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Yeah, that's
true.
a great point.
Yeah, I think in this world, right, it's very specific what specific training you need to to administrate a certain piece of software or whatever the case may be. But I also think that there's probably those underlying talents that are needed, critical thinking, the ability to, to quickly see, things that are not ordinary, or whatever those skill sets are. And I think sometimes we need to be looking for that in individuals, and understand that you can learn the system. You can, because no one came out knowing how to operate it. We just kind of maybe had some of those core skills behind us, and looking for that, I think, will help provide more of a diverse pool versus saying, like, if you don't have this certificate, then you're not going to be able to do this. That seems like that's really like closed door, like, because if I see that and I don't have it, I'm like, oh, but maybe I have all the skills to probably be one of the best people at that. And all I need is a little bit of encouragement and the opportunity to learn it. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And that brings us back to, the systemic problems, because what does it take to get that certificate? Is it accessible to people in marginalized communities, and et cetera?
Exactly.
Right. So, and that's what I mean by those systemic problems.
Yeah, I was actually just having a conversation about this with somebody yesterday. She was talking with a company. They had like some initiative to try to increase diversity in their company, and they were trying to they were posting jobs on some specific job board, just targeting like BIPOC applicants, but they were requiring a 4-year degree. And she was like, "What? Why are you cutting out a huge section of the population from this potential job just because they don't have a 4-year degree in what? Business communication? Like, do they need that? Are there any skills that they need there? No. Like, I don't know, to your point, Nabil, like, there are so many people that have so many personality traits that make them so good at tech. Like, the best tech consultants that I've ever met are people who know how to search the internet for something and know how to understand what problem a user is thinking about, no matter what they're saying. Like, sometimes you have to like look past what they're saying. They're like, well, this doesn't work and this doesn't work, but what they actually mean is this other thing. Like, if you can understand what somebody means, no matter what they say, and you can use Google, like, you're golden.
Yeah.
You got everything you need.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I tell people we're like just professional Googlers as consultants. And this is the thing with tech too. Like, you can get that cert or that degree in computer science, but like, tech changes so fast that if you're just focused on like, do you have this technical skill set? Well, that's going to be irrelevant in like a year or two. And so the problem solving, critical thinking, ability to just find resources on the internet, like, those are much more sustainable skills and valuable skills, in my opinion, to have than a diploma or a certification.
Yeah, I always say that when I hire somebody, I'm not looking for like the skills, I can teach them everything they need to know, right? When I bring somebody on board, the tech skills, any sort of that, you can't teach somebody to be a good employee, to have a good personality, to be able to work well with others, to have a team mind, like want to work as a team. Those are intangibles that you can't teach somebody. So, I mean, that's the way that I look at it, is I can teach someone everything they need to know from a tech perspective. Especially because, Liz, to your point, it's ongoing, it's going to change. But some of those intangibles or soft skills, some people just, it's innate, right? They have it regardless of, the background or tech training that they've had.
And that's why I like companies like nonprofits like TechFluent, because they allow that entry level access, right? You don't have to know anything about tech, and we will teach you and train you and then put you in a job. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful things that I've seen is like, you're given access to everyone that wants to try. You know what I mean? And we need more of that kind of stuff. Yeah. Simple and plain.
I agree.
I think, that encouragement behind it, giving people, that want to try an opportunity to be able to get in this space without the fear of, the assumption of failure. You know what I mean? I think that's just going to help widen, like I said, widen the net. So I think TechFluent, I mean, it's awesome what they're doing with that. I think the other thing is just some encouragement. I think when you're in this space, for example, I think about, a lot of sports analogies. Once you start to play a sport and you get better, you usually have a coach that's with you. Once you've been trying a skill and you get better at that specific skill, you may be horrible at the rest of them, but you get better at that specific skill. There's somebody telling you, you're doing a good job. You're headed in the right direction. I don't know if that happens, necessarily in this space, you know what I'm saying? And you have people around you saying like, hey, you're on the right thought process. You may have made a few mistakes here, but you're thinking about this the right way.
Right.
Because then if you don't, I think you could tend to just give up, you know. I've given up on my laptop sometimes. Like, I don't know what the heck's going on, man. I'm walking away.
I think we've all done that.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Every day.
so I think it could be really frustrating in this field.
Throwing it out
you know?
the window works, right?
Yeah.
I walk away from my laptop every time when it gets 5:30 to 6 p.m.
Nabil, I think to your point though, like you're saying, people need mentors. Like
Yeah.
that to me is a quality mentor will be that coach, be that person that even if they don't have the right answer or they don't know exactly how to help you, they can help you figure it out, give you some feedback, give you some direction, connect you to a resource that can. And so I think that really just drives home the point of how important ongoing and consistent mentorship is.
Yeah.
For everyone. I think no matter where you're at in your career, a mentor always helps.
And if you look at, if you look throughout history, every successful individual always had somebody that kind of mentored them or helped them. Even Michael Jordan has a coach. Even Tiger Woods has a coach. And there's some of the best to ever do it. But just to have that other perspective to help you while you're on your emotional roller coaster, because that's what happens when you're going through trials and errors and ups and downs and mistakes and whatnot. You need somebody there to kind of lift you up and tell you, no, actually you're doing this good. You just need to tweak these couple things from a different perspective. So just imagine people that are coming a background where they're trying something new, definitely need more mentors. We need more mentors. And people of color that are mentors. I want to put that out there too.
So Liz, we're running up on time. Do you want to ask before we get to our favorite question? Is there anything else you want to ask?
Yeah, I have two more. Maybe we can cover them quickly. But I want to ask if there's any other organizations, nonprofits, or initiatives that either of you want to share about. Like Tayo, I know you're helping with the Best Buy Tech Center and Smart North. And so I didn't know if you wanted to share about any of those other initiatives that you both probably have been working on.
Yes, I mean, it's sort of two different things. So it's Smart North, which is a nonprofit that I helped found that leverages technology to address digital equity and livability through our community. So one of the things that we're doing is building a tech center for the youth. This is like a place that is designed by the youth. So we have a lot of youth listening sessions, and it's actually going around the area of the George Floyd Square that has seen so much destruction. We're really trying to address that, and we're doing some work out in Deer River where we're helping the Native population, because that's another population that seems to be forgotten about. Mm-hmm. We want to kind of bring that awareness, those tech solutions to those individuals. And another thing that myself and Nabil are really addressing is in real estate. We really wanted to get ownership back into the community as far as owning the land and the homes that we are in, and the businesses that we're in, and the commercial properties that we're working out of. I think it's very imperative that we start to really address this economic problem as far as generational wealth goes.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how you feel like that, like owning your own property, it factors into the middle. Like you brought up the point that Minneapolis and so many other cities in our country are lacking a Black middle class. Like, how do you view real estate factoring into that?
Yeah, I think it factors into it significantly. It's perfect timing. Me and Tayo just got together and purchased a property right in the middle of South Minneapolis, not too far from George Floyd Square, so that we could make sure the businesses that are in that property can stay and hopefully thrive, and the tenants that live up above, it's a mixed-use property, can actually stay and hopefully be, active members in the community. And I think for us, it's important because now you become, an active member in that community. People in the community see you and they see you look like them, and that you're not necessarily just renting the space, that you're owning the space and you're giving people opportunities. So I think it's really important to own things within your community.
100%. And if you look at other communities that's overcome economic distress, you'll see that they really kept a lot of the dollars within their communities. They spent within their community, they owned within their community, they worked with people in their community. So that's really the goal, is how do we have the dollars circulate in our community a little bit more before it just leaves our community. And that's really the goal here, is to make people owners, and so they have something to pass off to their kids. If college is not cheap, access to this information obviously is not cheap. So we want to make sure that people are equipped financially, so they're able to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to them.
Is there anything else that either of you want to share before we get on to our final question?
Merlin, I really love your headphones. I wanted to say that from the beginning of this. I don't know what those are, but maybe let me know.
Yeah, I'll send you a note.
Cool.
I was going to ask a question. So I know you're both involved in some really awesome things in the Minneapolis area. How would other people find out about that kind of stuff? So like somebody's listening and they're saying, hey, you know what, I want to get involved in my community. How would you recommend for somebody to find out about what's going on or what is even there for them to assist with?
Well, first you can follow ask.tayo on Instagram. It's
Awesome.
K-T-A-Y-O. What I would say is it's really not hard to find. I would go to the communities that you're trying to help. Go there. Go to the look up the city websites. Go to the different organizations. The NAACP has a lot of stuff. Look for different nonprofits in that area and kind of start there. And then also look within yourself. What are your talents and how can you be of value? Liz, for example, TechFluent is a beautiful thing. And she didn't, she knew that her skills were in tech and she wanted to provide those skills to different people. And she went and connected with people that she felt that could get the attention of people that she may not have access to, but wanted to help. A lot of times people get so wrapped up on what they can't do and not really paying attention to what they can do. So, really look at yourself. What values do you have as an individual would be the first step. And then I would say, how can you add value to others?
Yeah, I would say, look online. I mean, you Google everything else. Google how you can help, tutor kids in your community. I mean, there's a lot of resources. I think you can find a lot of that online. And if you just engage yourself, you will find something productive that you can do to help your community. And it doesn't have to be for a large. It could just be one individual that you're mentoring, and that makes a huge difference because that person then mindset will change, and they will share that same energy with other people. So
exactly.
Should we ask our final question then?
We better ask it fast.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we learned from DJ that apparently hot dishes aren't a thing in the Black community. So we usually ask, what's your favorite hot dish? And if you don't know, a hot dish is a casserole. But if you don't eat hot dishes or casseroles, we'll broaden the question to what's your favorite food?
That's a favorite
food. I'm a big fan of I'm a big mac and cheese connoisseur. I'll tell you if it's any good or if it needs some work. I don't think it's quite a hot dish though. But yes, I don't think I've had too many hot dishes. Is green bean casserole, is that considered a hot dish?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I would consider them both hot dishes. Yeah.
Yeah. A white friend of mine told me about that.
Well, green bean casserole is only a thing for Thanksgiving. Let's get real.
I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't think it was a thing at all.
He said, it's green bean casserole. I love it. Man, it's really tough for me, man. I mean, my problem is I like food too much, right? I like all these different types of food. So, I love, a good barbecue, that barbecue on the grill, 4th of July barbecue, with all the fixings.
Now you're making me wish it was summer.
No kidding. I'm getting hungry.
Yeah.
You say.
And I also like Nigerian food. Love that kind of stuff. So, collard greens with chicken and goat meat. Yeah. I love lamb chops too. All right, I'm done.
Tayo's top 5 favorite foods.
About to go eat now.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I thought the conversation was great, and it was great to be part of this.
Yeah. Likewise, I'm glad you guys invited me to this. Keep up the good work. Shout out to TechFluent. Let's keep moving.
Yeah.
We
Thanks for
really
joining us
appreciate your
today.
time.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thank you for listening to the Dynamics Hot Dish Podcast. For additional content and previous episodes, check out our website at dynamicshotdish.com, follow us on Twitter at dynamicshotdish, and subscribe to our podcast for notifications. Thanks. See you next time.